The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched far beyond what most eyes could see. Thousands of different beings filled the curved seats that rose up like waves around the central speaking platform. Some breathed oxygen, others needed methane, and a few existed as pure energy contained in special suits. All of them had come to discuss the newest problem in their galaxy. Ambassador Zethkar stepped onto the speaking platform with heavy steps that echoed through the chamber. His reptilian body was covered in dark green scales that caught the light from above. Sharp claws clicked against the metal floor as he moved. The Veltar Empire had ruled over many worlds for thousands of years, and Zethkar carried himself like someone who expected others to listen and obey. Fellow members of the council, Zethkar began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation. Devices that every being wore. We gather today to discuss a species that has recently joined our galactic community, the humans of Earth. A murmur went through the chamber. Many species had heard strange stories about these humans. They came from a small blue planet at the edge of one of the galaxy's spiral arms. For most of galactic history, no one had paid attention to that quiet corner of space. Then, in less than 200 of their years, the humans had gone from riding animals to building ships that could cross between stars. Elder Christhia of the Ashanti raised one of her crystalline arms. Her people were made of living crystal and had been part of the galaxy's civilized species for over 10,000 years. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "The humans trouble many of us," she said. "They do not follow the normal patterns of civilized species. When we first met them, they brought gifts for our children. They asked about our families. They wanted to know if we needed medical help. This is not normal first contact behavior." Several other beings nodded their agreement. First contact with new species usually involved careful discussions about territory, trade rights, and military strength. Humans seemed more interested in making friends than making deals. Zethkar's yellow eyes narrowed. "Exactly my point, Elder Christhia. These humans show weakness where they should show strength. They form emotional bonds with other species, as if we were all part of their own family group. This pack-bonding behavior is primitive and dangerous." Ambassador Vorthak of the Nebulae drifted forward. His gaseous form swirled in shades of purple and blue inside his containment suit. "Dangerous indeed. When pirates attacked one of their trade ships, the humans did not simply replace the ship and move on as any logical species would do. Instead, they hunted down every single pirate involved. They rescued crew members who had been held prisoner for months. They spent more resources on the rescue than the original cargo was worth. Inefficient, agreed Commissioner Blex of the Hive Collective. His insect-like features clicked as he spoke. "Our calculations show they could have built 3 new ships for the cost of that rescue operation. Yet they chose to save individuals instead of maximizing profit." Zethkar spread his arms wide. "You see the problem? These humans refuse to abandon their people even when it makes no economic sense. They turn simple conflicts into personal crusades. When threatened, they do not calculate acceptable losses like civilized beings. They fight until either they win completely or they are all dead." The chamber grew quiet as the beings considered this information. Most galactic species had learned long ago that survival meant knowing when to surrender. A wise leader would give up territory, pay tribute, or accept defeat when the cost of fighting became too high. This was the natural order of things. Strong species ruled over weak ones, and weak ones survived by knowing their place. Elder Christhia's crystalline form shimmered with concern. "We have studied their history. In their most recent global war, one of their nations was completely surrounded by enemies. Any reasonable species would have surrendered to save lives. Instead, these humans fought on alone for years. They never gave up, even when defeat seemed certain." "Worse than that," added Vorthak, his gaseous form swirling, faster with agitation. "When their enemies attacked civilian populations, The humans responded by targeting enemy civilians as well. They turned war into something total, something that consumed everything until one side was completely destroyed. Zethkar struck the platform with his clawed fist, making a sharp crack that echoed through the chamber. This is exactly what I warn you about. These humans do not understand civilized warfare. They do not know when to stop. They turn every conflict into a fight for survival. Many of the assembled beings shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The galaxy had enjoyed relative peace for centuries because most species understood the rules. Wars were fought over resources, territory, or trade rights. When one side gained enough advantage, the other side would surrender and negotiate new terms. It was efficient and logical. But humans seemed to operate by different rules entirely. Commissioner Blex's mandibles clicked rapidly. "What do you propose we do about this, Ambassador Zethkar?" The reptilian ambassador's scales seemed to darken with satisfaction. "The Veltar Empire has dealt with primitive species before. We have brought order to 847 different worlds. These humans need to learn their place in the galactic community." Elder Christia's form grew brighter with alarm. "Ambassador, surely you do not mean to attack them? The humans have done nothing to threaten the Veltar Empire." "They exist as a threat to galactic order," Zethkar replied firmly. "Their unpredictable behavior and refusal to follow civilized rules makes them dangerous to everyone. We propose to give them a simple choice: accept Veltar guidance and protection, or face the consequences of their primitive ways." The chamber erupted in voices speaking dozens of different languages. Some beings supported Zethkar's position, agreeing that humans needed to be controlled before they caused problems. Others worried that attacking humans might provoke exactly the kind of total war response they feared. Ambassador Keth of the peaceful gardener species rose from his seat. His plant-like form swayed gently as he spoke. "Perhaps we should try diplomatic contact first. The humans may be willing to accept guidance if it is offered peacefully." Zethkar's laugh was cold and harsh. "Diplomacy works with civilized species. Ambassador Keth, these humans are barely above animals. They respond to strength, not words. The Veltar Empire will show them the proper order of things." Elder Christia tried once more to change his mind. "Ambassador Zethkar, please reconsider. The humans may seem primitive, but they have developed technology very quickly. They might be more dangerous than you think." 847 worlds, Zethkar repeated, his voice full of pride. "Every species that has faced the Veltar Empire has learned to accept our guidance. These humans will be no different. Their emotional weaknesses will make them easier to control, not harder." The vote, when it came, was not about whether to act against the humans. The Veltar Empire was strong enough to make its own decisions about that. The vote was whether the Galactic Council would officially support their action. The result was close, but the supporters won. As the session ended and beings began to file out of the chamber, small groups gathered to discuss what might happen next. Most expected the humans to surrender quickly once they faced the Veltar military. A few worried about what might happen if they did not. Elder Christia remained in her seat long after others had gone, her crystalline form dim with worry. She had studied the humans more carefully than most, and what she had learned made her afraid. Not afraid of what humans might do to the galaxy, but afraid of what the galaxy might awaken in humanity. Somewhere in the distant spiral arm where Earth turned around its yellow star, humans continued their daily lives, unaware that their fate had just been decided in a chamber far across the galaxy. They tended their gardens, played with their children, and dreamed of the peaceful future. They hoped to build among the stars. They had no idea that war was coming. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council meeting. The Veltar Warfleet moved through space like a dark cloud of metal and death. 200 ships of various sizes formed a perfect formation as they approached the outer edge of human territory. Admiral Krex stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the stars grow brighter as they traveled. Krex had led successful campaigns against dozens of species. His tactics were always the same because they always worked. Show overwhelming force, destroy key targets, take prisoners, and wait for surrender. Most species gave up within days once they saw the power of the Veltar Empire. Those who resisted longer learned that resistance only made their defeat more painful. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Neth from her station, "we are receiving a transmission from the human colony ahead." "Put it on screen," Krex ordered. A human face appeared on the main display. The being looked young by human standards, with pale skin and brown hair. She wore a simple uniform with no military decorations. When she spoke, her voice was calm and steady. "This is Administrator Sarah Chen of New Geneva Colony. You have entered human territorial space without permission. Please state your intentions." Krex stepped forward, his large reptilian form casting a shadow across the bridge. "Human, I am Admiral Krex of the Veltar Empire. Your species has been judged primitive and dangerous by the Galactic Council. You will surrender control of 3 outer colonies to Veltar administration. You will also pay tribute of 1 million tons of processed metals each year. This is not a negotiation." The human administrator's expression did not change. "Admiral, I do not have the authority to make such decisions. I will need to contact Earth government for instructions. This will take time." "You have 6 hours," Krex replied. "If you do not surrender by then, we will take what we require by force." The transmission ended. Krex turned to his tactical officer. "Begin scanning their defenses. I want to know exactly what weapons they have." The results surprised him. New Geneva Colony had only basic defensive systems. A few small patrol ships, some orbital platforms with light weapons, and ground-based missile launchers. For a Veltar fleet of 200 warships, it would be like crushing an insect. As the 6 hours passed, more human ships appeared. They came in small groups from different directions, clearly responding to distress calls from the colony. Most were merchant vessels or light transports. A few looked like military ships, but they were tiny compared to Veltar warships. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "the humans now have 47 ships in the area. Shall we begin the attack?" Krex nodded. "Begin with orbital bombardment of military targets. Avoid civilian areas for now. We want prisoners, not corpses." The yes. Attack began exactly as planned. Veltar energy weapons reached down from space like fingers of fire. The human orbital platforms exploded in bright flashes. Their small defensive fleet tried to fight back, but their weapons barely scratched the Veltar shields. Within 2 hours, all human military resistance had ended. Veltar landing ships descended to the colony surface while dropships filled with soldiers prepared to secure key buildings. This was the moment when most species finally understood their situation and began surrender negotiations. But the humans did something unexpected. Instead of calling for surrender talks, they went silent. Communications Officer Neth tried multiple times to contact human authorities. "Admiral, they are not responding to any of our signals. All communication channels have gone dead." This puzzled Krex. In 847 previous campaigns, species had always tried to negotiate once they saw the futility of resistance. Even the most stubborn enemies eventually sent surrender offers or pleas for mercy. Perhaps their communications were damaged in the attack, suggested his tactical officer. "Then they should be using emergency broadcasts or even basic radio signals," Krex replied. "Something is strange here." The ground invasion proceeded smoothly. Veltar soldiers captured the main administrative buildings, the power plant, and the spaceport. Human civilians offered no resistance and seemed to cooperate with their orders. Everything appeared normal, but still no communication from Earth or any other human authority. Days passed. Veltar ships patrolled human space, waiting for the surrender that never came. They captured 2 more small colonies using the same tactics. Each time, local resistance was crushed quickly and efficiently. Each time, human authorities remained completely silent. "Admiral," reported Intelligence Officer Vex after a week of occupation, "we have interrogated many human prisoners. They claim not to know why their government has not responded to us." "Do you believe them?" Krex asked. "The truth scanners indicate they are being honest. They seem as confused as we are by the silence." This was unprecedented in Krex's experience. Usually, conquered populations knew what their leaders were planning. There were always rumors, secret messages, or signs of preparation for either surrender or resistance. But these humans seemed genuinely unaware of any government response. More time passed. Veltar forces settled into occupation routines on the captured worlds. They established control points, organized the civilian population, and began extracting resources. Everything proceeded according to standard protocols. Yet the silence from human authorities continued. Krex studied reports from across human territory. Long-range sensors showed normal activity on human worlds. Ships moved along trade routes. Cities continued to function. There were no signs of military buildup or evacuation procedures. It was as if the entire human government had simply decided to ignore the Veltar invasion. "Perhaps they are planning to abandon these outer colonies," suggested his communications officer. "Some species sacrifice frontier territories to protect their core worlds." But intelligence reports contradicted this theory. Human merchant ships continued to arrive at the captured colonies as if nothing had happened. When Veltar forces intercepted them, the crews seemed surprised to learn that their colonies were under occupation. 3 weeks after the first attack, something changed. The silence was broken not by surrender offers or negotiation requests, but by a single message broadcast on all human frequencies. It was very short and seemed to be in some kind of code. "Remember New Geneva. Protocol Omega is authorized. Leave none." The message repeated for exactly 1 minute, then stopped. After that, the silence returned. Krex called his senior officers to the bridge. "What do you make of this message?" Intelligence Officer Vex consulted his data pad. "The phrase, 'Remember New Geneva,' likely refers to our first attack. But we cannot determine what Protocol Omega means. Our language analysis systems have no record of this term in human military communications." "And leave none?" Krex asked. "Also unclear. It could mean leave no survivors, leave no witnesses, or leave no territory unconquered." Human language often contains multiple meanings. Tactical Officer Rend looked up from his console. "Admiral, I am detecting unusual movement in human space. Many merchant vessels are changing course toward unknown destinations." "Fleeing from our advance?" Krex wondered. "That was my first thought. But their courses do not lead toward human core worlds. They seem to be heading for empty space or asteroid fields." This was another puzzle. If humans were evacuating, they should be moving toward their most defended positions. Instead, they appeared to be scattering in all directions like seeds on the wind. Krex made a decision that would later prove to be a terrible mistake. "Continue with the occupation. Expand our control to the next ring of human colonies. This scattered retreat shows they cannot organize effective resistance." Orders went out to Veltar commanders throughout human space. The invasion would proceed to the next phase. More ships arrived from Veltar territory, bringing the fleet's strength to over 400 vessels. Ground forces were reinforced with heavy equipment and specialized troops. Everything seemed to be going perfectly according to plan. But in the deep spaces between stars, things were happening that Veltar intelligence never detected. Human merchant. Ships that had seemed to scatter in panic were actually moving to predetermined positions. Cargo holds that appeared to contain trade goods actually held weapons and soldiers. Mining operations in distant asteroid fields revealed themselves to be military bases. The silence that had puzzled Admiral Krex was not confusion or cowardice. It was preparation. Across human space, a transformation was beginning that would change the galaxy forever. The species that other aliens thought was too emotional and primitive to be truly dangerous was about to demonstrate what made them the most feared predators on their home world. They were pack hunters, and their pack had been attacked. The first sign that something was wrong came during the morning briefing on Admiral Krex's flagship. Communications Officer Neth looked confused as she stared at her instruments. "Admiral, we are experiencing some technical difficulties with our communication systems." Krex approached her station with mild concern. Technical problems were rare on Veltar ships, but they did happen occasionally. "What kind of difficulties?" "Our secure channels keep switching to different frequencies without commands from us. Several times this morning, our ships have received false orders that did not come from this bridge." "False orders?" "Yes, sir. 2 patrol ships were told to investigate distress signals that did not exist. A supply convoy was redirected to coordinates where nothing was waiting for them. Each time, the orders came through proper channels with correct security codes. This was more serious than a simple technical malfunction." Krex called his intelligence officer to the bridge immediately. "Vex, could the humans be interfering with our communications?" Intelligence Officer Vex examined the data carefully. "The humans we have encountered show no signs of advanced electronic warfare capabilities. Their captured colonies had only basic computer systems." "Then explain how they obtained our security codes." "I cannot, Admiral. Our encryption systems are among the most advanced in the galaxy. It should be impossible for a primitive species to break them. But across human space, things that should have been impossible were happening every day. Human computer specialists, working with artificial intelligence systems that the Veltar had never imagined, were dissecting Veltar communication protocols, like surgeons examining a patient. Every transmission between Veltar ships was recorded, analyzed, and understood. The patterns that Veltar cryptographers thought were unbreakable were actually quite simple to minds that approached the problem from completely different directions. More importantly, humans had been preparing for this kind of warfare since the day they joined the galactic community. While the Veltar had been perfecting traditional conquest techniques, humans had been studying every weakness in galactic civilization's technological foundations. The next problem appeared 2 days later. Veltar patrol ships began reporting equipment failures that made no sense. Weapon systems would shut down during routine operations. Navigation computers would display incorrect coordinates. Life support systems would malfunction just long enough to cause panic before mysteriously fixing themselves. "Admiral," reported Chief Engineer Korvac, "we have examined the malfunctioning systems on 3 different ships. There is no physical damage. All components test as functional. Yet the problems continue." "Could this be sabotage?" Krex asked. "How?" "We have detected no intruders. Our security sweeps find nothing unusual. The systems simply behave as if they are receiving incorrect instructions from their own control programs." What the Veltar did not understand was that humans had been quietly mapping every piece of technology in galactic civilization for months before the invasion. Those merchant ships that had seemed so harmless were actually reconnaissance vessels, their cargo holds filled with the most advanced scanning equipment human science could produce. Every Veltar ship that had passed near a human trade route had been studied in detail. Every component, every system, every weakness had been cataloged and analyzed. Human engineers now knew more about Veltar technology than the Veltar did themselves. But the real surprise came when the humans finally revealed their military forces. It started with a single patrol ship that simply vanished. One moment it was reporting normal status from its position near a human asteroid mining operation. The next moment it was gone. No distress signal, no explosion detected, no wreckage found. "Search the area thoroughly," Krex ordered. "I want to know what happened to that ship." The search teams found nothing. The asteroid field looked exactly as it had before, with automated mining equipment still working normally. But when they examined the mining equipment more closely, they discovered something impossible. The mining equipment was not mining equipment at all. It was weapons, massive weapons that had been disguised to look like industrial machinery. The asteroids themselves had been hollowed out and turned into hidden military bases. "Admiral," called Tactical Officer Rend, his voice tight with concern. "I am detecting similar installations throughout human space. What we thought were mining operations, research stations, and communication arrays, they are all military facilities." Krex felt a chill run down his spine. "How many?" "Thousands, sir. Possibly tens of thousands. They have been hidden in plain sight throughout their entire territory." This was when Admiral Krex began to understand that the Veltar Empire had made a terrible mistake. The humans had not been caught unprepared by the invasion. They had been expecting it. Everything they had shown the galaxy about their capabilities had been carefully calculated to hide their true strength. The attack, when it came, was like nothing in Veltar military history. Human forces struck simultaneously at dozens of targets, across Veltar space. But these were not the crude frontal assaults that most species attempted when fighting the Empire. These were surgical strikes designed to cripple Veltar capabilities without giving them a chance to respond. Communication. Relays exploded in perfect timing, cutting off entire fleet groups from their commanders. Supply bases found their defensive systems turned against them by computer viruses that had been planted months earlier. Transport ships carrying reinforcements discovered that their navigation systems were guiding them into carefully prepared ambushes. "Admiral, we are under attack," shouted Communications Officer Neth. "Veltar colonies throughout the Outer Rim are reporting simultaneous assaults by unknown forces." "Unknown forces? What do you mean, unknown?" "The attacking ships do not match any known human designs. Their technology appears to be far in advance of anything we have seen from them." On the tactical display, reports flooded in from across Veltar space. Each attack followed the same pattern. Fast, powerful ships would appear without warning, destroy their targets with devastating efficiency, then vanish before reinforcements could arrive. But the most disturbing aspect was not the attacks themselves. It was how precisely the humans seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum effect. "They know our supply routes," reported Intelligence Officer Vex. "They know which colonies are most important to our economy. They know where our reserve fleets are stationed. They know everything." Krex stared at the tactical display in growing horror. Red symbols marking destroyed facilities spread across the map like a disease. The Veltar Empire, which had seemed so powerful just days before, was being systematically dismantled piece by piece. How is this possible? Our intelligence networks showed no signs of human infiltration. "Perhaps," Vex said quietly, "our intelligence networks were compromised from the beginning." This was the truth that the Veltar were only beginning to understand. Those harmless human traders and diplomats who had been welcomed throughout galactic civilization had not been harmless at all. They had been gathering intelligence on every species, every technology, every weakness in the galactic community. More. Importantly, they had been preparing for war since the day they made first contact with alien species. While other races saw humans as primitive and emotional, humans had been coldly analyzing every potential threat and developing counters for each one. The Veltar Empire had evolved their military tactics over thousands of years of successful conquests. Their strategies were refined and proven effective against hundreds of different species, but they were also predictable to an enemy that had studied those same conquests and learned how to exploit their weaknesses. "Admiral," called his tactical officer urgently, "long-range sensors are detecting a massive human fleet approaching our position." "How massive?" "At least 1,000 ships, sir. Possibly more. They are approaching from multiple directions." Krex looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. For the first time in Veltar military history, he saw fear in their eyes. The empire that had never known defeat was about to face an enemy that fought by completely different rules. "All ships, prepare for battle," he ordered. "Signal the fleet to form defensive positions." But as the human ships drew closer, Krex realized that traditional defensive positions would not be enough. The humans were not just bringing superior numbers or better technology. They were bringing something far more dangerous. They were bringing the fury of a species that had been underestimated for the last time. The battle that followed was not really a battle at all. It was an execution. Admiral Krex watched in disbelief as his fleet, which had conquered hundreds of worlds, was destroyed in less than 3 hours. Human ships moved through space like they were dancing, their movements perfectly coordinated in ways that defied everything the Veltar knew about space combat. "Admiral, our weapons cannot penetrate their shields," reported Tactical Officer Rend. "But their weapons are cutting through our defenses like they do not exist." "How is that possible? Our armor plating is the strongest in the galaxy." "Not anymore, sir. These human weapons seem designed specifically to counter our defensive systems." This was exactly what had happened. Human scientists had spent months analyzing captured Veltar equipment from their occupied colonies. Every piece of armor, every shield generator, every defensive system had been studied until humans understood them better than their original designers. The weapons now tearing through. Veltar ships had been built for one purpose: to make Veltar military technology completely useless. But the humans were not just winning the space battle. Reports flooded in from across Veltar territory showing that they were systematically dismantling the entire empire. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Neth, "we are receiving reports from our colonies throughout the galaxy. Human forces are attacking everywhere at once." "What do you mean, everywhere?" "Every Veltar world, every military base, every government facility. The attacks are happening simultaneously across thousands of light years. It is impossible to coordinate such an operation." Yet somehow, humans were doing exactly that. What the Veltar did not know was that human merchant ships had been positioned throughout the galaxy for months, waiting for this moment. When Protocol Omega was activated, every hidden human military unit had received their orders at the same time. The scale of the human operation was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. While the Veltar had been preparing to conquer 3 human colonies, humans had been preparing to destroy an entire galactic empire, but destroying Veltar military forces was only the beginning. The humans had much larger plans. On the Veltar colony world of Kazeth, human marines landed not to destroy the planet, but to liberate it. The indigenous Kazeth people had been enslaved by the Veltar for over 200 years. They watched in amazement as human soldiers broke open their prison camps and handed them weapons. "We are here to free you from Veltar rule," announced the human commander through translation devices. "Will you help us destroy their remaining forces on your world?" The answer was immediate and enthusiastic. Within hours, human forces were joined by thousands of liberated Kazeth fighters who knew every secret of their oppressors. The same scene repeated on world after world throughout Veltar space. Species that had been conquered and enslaved for centuries suddenly found themselves armed and supported by human military units. The humans did not want to rule these worlds themselves. They wanted to destroy the Veltar so completely that they could never threaten anyone again. Admiral Krex tried desperately to understand what was happening. "This is not how galactic warfare works," he told his remaining officers as they fled toward Veltar home space. "Conquering species fight for territory and resources. They do not try to eliminate their enemies completely." "Perhaps," suggested Intelligence Officer Vex, "humans do not think like other species." This was the truth that the Veltar were learning too late. Human warfare was not about conquest or territory. It was about solving problems. The Veltar Empire had become a problem that threatened human safety and galactic peace. Therefore, The problem needed to be eliminated permanently. As the remnants of the Veltar fleet approached their home system, they found it already under siege. Massive human battle groups surrounded the Veltar homeworld, but they were not attacking. They were waiting. Why are they not bombarding the planet? Krex wondered. His communications officer provided the answer. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet commander. The face that appeared on screen was surprisingly young and calm. The human spoke with the same quiet confidence that had characterized all human military communications. Admiral Krex, I am Fleet Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Federation Navy. You may remember me as the administrator of New Geneva Colony. Krex stared in shock. The same human who had seemed so helpless during his first attack was now commanding the fleet that had destroyed his empire. You destroyed my colony, she continued. You killed my friends and enslaved my people. Now your entire fleet is trapped in your home system with nowhere to run. I want you to understand something very important. The transmission paused, and Krex found himself leaning forward despite his fear. We are not here to conquer your world, Commander Chen said. We are here to solve a problem. The Veltar Empire is that problem. When we are finished, there will be no more Veltar Empire. There will be no more Veltar military. There will be no more Veltar colonies. There will be no more Veltar government. Do you understand? Krex's hands shook as he responded. Commander, surely we can negotiate. The Veltar Empire is willing to discuss terms of surrender. Admiral, you misunderstand the situation. This is not a war where one side wins and the other side surrenders. This is pest control. We are not here to accept your surrender. We are here to exterminate you. The transmission ended, leaving Krex and his officers in stunned silence. What they did not know was that this conversation was being broadcast throughout the galaxy. Every species that had ever feared Veltar power was watching as the mighty empire learned what it meant to face an enemy that fought without restraint. The siege of the Veltar homeworld lasted 3 months. Not because the humans needed that long to conquer it, but because they wanted every Veltar in the galaxy to understand their situation completely. During those 3 months, every remaining Veltar military unit was systematically hunted down and destroyed. Every Veltar colony was liberated by the species they had once enslaved. Every Veltar government official was captured or killed. The humans made no secret of their intentions. They broadcast their operations on all galactic frequencies, so that everyone could see exactly what was happening to the species that had attacked them. This is what happens, their messages said, to anyone who mistakes human kindness for weakness. Other galactic species watched in fascination and terror. The humans were not just defeating the Veltar. They were erasing them from existence, so thoroughly that future generations would know them only as a cautionary tale. The end came suddenly. On the 91st day of the siege, human forces activated a device they had spent months building in secret. The defensive systems that protected the Veltar homeworld, systems that had been impregnable for thousands of years, suddenly turned inward. Every defensive weapon on the planet began targeting Veltar positions. The shields that had protected their cities became prisons that trapped them inside. Their own technology became their destroyer. Admiral Krex sent one final message. Before his flagship was destroyed by his own planet's defenses, it was broadcast across the galaxy on all frequencies. We were wrong. Humans do not fight wars. They solve problems. We became a problem. Those were the last words ever spoken by a member of the Veltar Empire. The galaxy would remember them forever. 2 years had passed since the last Veltar ship was destroyed, trying to escape to the galactic rim. The great chamber of the Galactic Council looked very different now. Where ornate Veltar delegation seats had once dominated the upper levels, a quiet memorial garden grew. Flowers from dozens of different worlds bloomed where proud warriors had once planned the conquest of primitive species. Elder Christhia of the Ashanti, had not spoken much during council sessions since the Veltar extinction. Her crystalline form seemed dimmer than before, as if the events she had witnessed had drained some essential light from her being. Today, however, she had requested permission to address the assembly. "Fellow beings," she began, her voice carrying the sound of wind through crystal caves, "I wish to speak about the lessons we have learned." The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what lessons she meant. 2 years ago, many of us voted to support Veltar action against the human species. We believed that humans were primitive and emotional. We thought their pack-bonding behavior made them weak and inefficient. She paused, allowing her words to echo through the chamber. We were wrong about everything. Commissioner Blex of the Hive Collective shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His insect-like features clicked nervously as he remembered his own role in encouraging the Veltar action. "Elder Christhia, surely the humans simply had better technology than we realized?" "No, Commissioner. Technology was not the deciding factor." Elder Christhia's form grew brighter as she spoke with greater intensity. "I have spent these 2 years studying what really happened. The humans did not win because of superior weapons or larger fleets. They won because they understood something that we did not." Ambassador Vorthak of the Nebulae drifted forward in his containment suit. "What did they understand that we missed?" "They understood that we were not just attacking 3 of their colonies. We were attacking their family." The chamber buzzed with confused murmurs. Many species struggled to understand how 3 distant colonies could be considered family by beings who had never met the colonists personally. Elder Christhia continued her explanation. When the Veltar attacked New Geneva Colony, they thought they were following standard conquest procedures: destroy military targets, capture infrastructure, take prisoners, wait for surrender. This had worked against 847 other species. "Yes," agreed Commissioner Blex, "standard and efficient tactics. But humans do not see other humans as statistics or acceptable losses. To them, every human in that colony was a child, a parent, a friend, a member of their pack. The attack on New Geneva was not just an attack on territory. It was an attack on humanity itself." Ambassador Keth of the gardener species swayed gently as he spoke. "But surely this emotional response should have made them less effective fighters, not more effective." "That is what the Veltar believed," Elder Christhia replied. "They expected human emotions to lead to panic, confusion, and quick surrender. Instead, human emotions led to something far more dangerous: total commitment." She gestured toward the memorial garden where Veltar seats had once been. When humans decided that the Veltar Empire was a threat to their pack, they did not just plan to defeat the Veltar military. They planned to eliminate the threat permanently. Not conquest, not subjugation, complete extinction. The silence in the chamber was heavy with the weight of understanding. Every species present had encountered predators on their homeworlds. They knew the difference between fighting for territory and fighting for survival. Humans had fought as if the survival of their entire species depended on victory. "The humans spent months preparing," Elder Christhia continued. "While the Veltar were planning a simple conquest operation, humans were planning the total destruction of a galactic empire. They gathered intelligence on every Veltar world, every ship, every weakness. They positioned forces throughout the galaxy. They prepared weapons specifically designed to counter Veltar technology." Commissioner Blex's mandibles clicked rapidly. "But how did they coordinate such a massive operation in secret?" "Because we underestimated them," Elder Christhia replied simply. "We saw their merchant ships and thought they were traitors. We saw their diplomats and thought they were naive. We saw their research stations and thought they were scientists. We never realized that every human in galactic space was also a potential soldier." The truth was sobering. For months before the Veltar attack, humans had been quietly preparing for the possibility of war with any galactic species. Their trade networks had been designed to double as military supply lines. Their research stations had been built to serve as forward military bases. Their diplomats had been gathering intelligence on every potential enemy. Ambassador Vorthak's gaseous form swirled with agitation. "You are saying that humans have been preparing to fight all of us?" "Not to fight us," Elder Christhia corrected. "To protect themselves from us. There is an important difference." At that moment, the chamber's main entrance opened, and a familiar figure walked onto the speaking platform. It was Ambassador Sarah Chen of the Terran Federation, the same human, who had commanded the fleet that destroyed the Veltar homeworld. She looked exactly as calm and composed as she had during the war. The chamber fell completely silent as she approached the speaking podium. This was the first time a human representative had addressed the full Galactic Council since the Veltar extinction. "Fellow beings," Ambassador Chen began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "I understand that many of you have questions about recent events. I am here to provide answers." Elder Christhia stepped back to allow the human to speak. Despite everything that had happened, she felt a chill of fear in the presence of this small, seemingly harmless being who had orchestrated the destruction of an entire galactic empire. "First," Ambassador Chen continued, "I want to address the concern that humanity poses a threat to galactic peace. This concern is understandable but misguided. Humans have no interest in conquest or empire building. We are not the Veltar." She gestured toward the memorial garden. "The Veltar made the mistake of believing that our desire for peaceful coexistence was weakness. They attacked our people and enslaved our citizens. They ignored our attempts at diplomatic contact. They chose to treat us as primitive animals that needed to be controlled." Her voice remained calm, but there was something in her tone that made every being in the chamber acutely aware of their own mortality. "The fate of the Veltar serves as a lesson to the galaxy. Humans prefer diplomacy to violence. We prefer trade to warfare. We prefer making friends to making enemies. But we will not tolerate attacks on our people, or the enslavement of any sapient species." Commissioner Blex found the courage to ask a question. "Ambassador Chen, what are humanity's intentions regarding galactic governance?" "We have no desire to rule over other species," she replied immediately. "We wish to continue our policy of peaceful trade and cultural exchange. However, we will no longer tolerate the kind of behavior that the Veltar Empire represented." "What kind of behavior?" asked Ambassador Vorthak. "Slavery, genocide, unprovoked attacks on civilian populations, the conquest and subjugation of peaceful species?" Her eyes seemed to look directly at each being in the chamber as she spoke. "These practices end now." The implications were clear. Humanity was not claiming dominion over the galaxy, but they were establishing themselves as its protectors. Any species that engaged in the kind of aggressive expansion that had characterized the Veltar Empire would face the same fate. "We are prepared to discuss mutual defense agreements with any species that wishes peaceful relations," Ambassador Chen continued. "We offer our technology and resources to help rebuild worlds that were damaged by Veltar occupation. We welcome trade partnerships and cultural exchanges." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that made the chamber seem smaller. "But understand this clearly. The galaxy has changed. The time when strong species could prey upon weak ones is over. Humanity will not allow it to continue." The session ended with no formal votes or resolutions. None were needed. Every species in the chamber understood the new reality. The galaxy's apex predators had awakened, and they had established new rules for survival. As beings filed out of the chamber, they spoke in hushed tones about what they had witnessed. The humans had not just defeated the Veltar Empire. They had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy. Elder Christhia remained in her seat long after the others had gone, her crystalline form reflecting the soft light from the memorial garden. She thought about the lessons her species had learned and about the warnings they had ignored. The humans had tried to be peaceful. They had offered friendship and cooperation. They had asked for nothing more than to be left alone to build their quiet lives among the stars. But when pushed too far, they had revealed their true nature. Not as conquerors or empire builders, but as protectors who would stop at nothing to defend their pack. The galaxy was safer now, she realized. Safer, but also forever changed by the knowledge of what sleeping giants could do when awakened. In the memorial garden, flowers from 1,000 different worlds bloomed where warriors had once planned conquest. It was a beautiful reminder of what the universe could become when its predators chose to be gardeners instead.